Okay. Oh, the lady just told me that there's a recording in progress. So welcome everyone to the Cozy Mystery Book Club. I'm Shea MacLeod and I was April's author of the month, or my book was the book of the month. And I would like to introduce you to my friend and fellow author, Kate P. Adams, who wrote who's writing the Charleston House mystery series, and her book is the book of the month this month. So hello and welcome.
Hello. To the other side of the country.
I know. You'd think from our accents we were from the other side of the world, but no, we aren't.
No,
I'm on the West Coast. Yeah. And Kate is on the East Coast, but not of England, of America. Although at one time it could have been the other way around. So Kate, question. How did you get into writing? Tell me all about it.
How long have we got? Have a drink and settle down. How the first bit ever actually happened, I cannot remember. But for as long as I can recall, I've written. When I was a teenager, I wrote a lot of short stories and poetry. Not particularly teenage angsty stuff, but I didn't really head down that path. But I did quite a lot, and I don't know what got me into it. But I have, in fact, down here next to me, I have a folder full of short stories and poems that are never gonna see the light of day.
Yeah, I have one of those as well.
Yeah. One of them involves a dead priest in a forest, so it was clearly kind of setting the scene for the future.
Clearly, the murder started early for you.
They did. A long, dark American past. So I did that for a long time, and then did all the usual stuff. I did an English degree, so lots of essays and all that kind of thing. And then I moved on to non-fiction. So there was a period of time where I had a column in a local magazine, and by local, that's the reference back to England again. So I grew up in the countryside just south of Manchester, which is the usual reference for people. So I had a column in a magazine. I did a couple of pieces for some national newspapers and just did bits and pieces. And then in my early 20s, I was a complete crime fiction addict. And I wrote about 70,000 words of a crime novel. This was PI. This wasn't cozy. It was a private PI or private detective in Manchester. Wrote about 70,000 words of it. And then life just got in the way. And I never finished it. In fact, I completely forgot about it. But again, it's down here and we'll never see the light.
I've got also one of those that, because I decided I wanted to write romantic suspense. And it was just shy of, but I can't pay the rent, but you must pay the rent. But I can't pay the rent, but you must. I mean, it was so ridiculously melodramatic that, it's safely, it probably should be burned, but I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, that's just, especially when it's physical piece of paper from the old days of word processing, to actually destroy that. I just
I'm pretty sure this was done on a typewriter, if I recall, but that's how old school that was.
Yeah, mine's going to stay under the desk. There is a theme in it that I might bring back, but that's going to stay under there. So I did that and then got on with my career and spent 25 years working in arts management, in heritage sites, all that kind of stuff, which I guess we'll probably come back to at some point. And then I wrote a management book. So the first book I ever published was actually a management book. And
that's sexy. That is sexy.
It's actually called Always Time for Coffee.
Oh, so I love it.
I got the coffee in there early. Yeah. I published that, and I was doing that around the time of moving to the States. And I always remember at the time I'd finished my kind of career-y stuff because I was getting ready to move. And I worked at an airport in a shop, and shifts could start anywhere from 3 a.m. onwards. And I would turn up at the airport about 2 hours early, go into a cafe and wrote by hand. I didn't bring a laptop.
Wow.
The whole first draft by hand, which was really interesting and quite a lot of fun. And I did that. And so it took couple of years to get that together and get it edited and work with the proofreader and all that kind of stuff. And that was published in 2017, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot of nonfiction stuff before I eventually came back.
Honing your skills.
Yeah. Learning how. One of the big things was which is useful now, even particularly now with murder mysteries, is learning how to be writing about real people but disguise who it is, so that you're not in trouble.
Oh yes, so that you don't end up in court or on the Investigation Discovery Channel.
Yeah, management and murder mystery both could head you down that path if you're not careful.
Absolutely. So how did you go from this, exciting life of management and crime writing to doing, veering over to the cozy mystery? How did you discover those?
Well, it's interesting because I moved to the States in 2018, so I've not been here all that long. And I moved here for fantastic reasons. I married an American. My wife's American, so that's the reason I'm here. So that's wonderful and fantastic, and life is rosy. But moving to a new country is stressful, nerve-wracking. And people assume that the UK and the US are really similar, but we are completely different.
No, they're so. I thought the same when I moved the other direction, and it was like this one thing is not like the other. We speak kind of the same language, more or less, but we have similar foods and customs that are recognizable, more or less. But that's about where it ends.
And I think it's almost harder because if you go somewhere where the language is different and the signs don't make sense, everything's new and you just go, okay, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But here, there might be a road sign that to me is just, I understand what it means, and the road sign is ludicrous. So whereas if it was in French, I'd kind of go, well, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, let's just go with it. But you're trying to make sense of it in the way that, like, because you're like, this should make sense. Yeah. But it doesn't.
I'm getting really annoyed. Like, oh my God, it was not an easy move. It was exciting and wonderful, but it wasn't hugely easy. And I, like a lot of bookworms, one of the ways I kind of cope with stuff is to dive into books and hide in other worlds and find comfort and familiarity there. And I don't know how I stumbled across the cozy mysteries, but I found myself reading them. And I was reading Agatha Frost's Perivale Cafe series. That's the first one I read. Mildred Abbott's Cozy Corgi Mysteries. And that's now why I'm obsessed with corgis in quite an unhealthy way. I've been able to follow them around town and things. And just,
there's that strange woman again, Mildred, following our corgi.
I followed a corgi, and not the owner so much, but it was attached to the owner, around the Forest Information Center in San Diego. And my wife was like, what are you doing? I'm back in a minute. I'm following this cute little corgi book.
You have the cutest pets.
Absolutely. But I live opposite. My windows look out on the park, and I can see all the dog owners, so I know when the corgis are out. So if I go halfway through this interview,
I'll know it was a corgi, and I'll just finish things up on my own. I'll make up the answers to the questions. So
that's thanks to Mildred Abbott, and also our own Laura Durham's Annabelle Archer.
Yes.
And they were just fantastic because at quite a stressful time in my life, they weren't full of politics and stress and goriness and violence and family trauma. They were just real fun escapism with a nice wrapped up conclusion at the end.
Yeah.
They weren't too long, so you felt that sense of completion because I wasn't completing a lot. I wasn't allowed to work. I didn't have my green card.
Right.
Okay, I'd kind of finished the management book, but it was like, what do I do now? And that was what I was doing. So I was plowing through those and reading those. And at the time I was thinking, okay, second management book, got to do the next one. What am I going to do it on? I really enjoy all this. And that was when I remembered, because I'd forgotten all about it. I suddenly remembered, you wrote a crime book. You wrote. And I'd forgotten, I swear I'd forgotten completely for about 20 years I'd even written this thing. So what on earth are you doing? Write a crime book. And by the way, you love in the cozies, so get on with it, girl. And that was kind of where it started, really. Go on.
Yeah, I've got that. My inner voice has about the same attitude. Get on with it. What are you fapping about for? So you're originally from England, and you were talking about your management of national historic sites. Well, that means fancy houses, right? Stately homes. I love a good stately home. I've poked around a few. Tell me about how, working in those, and according to your little bio, it also says theaters and museums, which I love those too. So how does that kind of like inspire your writing or sort of, inspire your stories?
Well, there's the kind of the general and the specific, because you work in those sorts of environments and they're full of stories of every kind. I worked at, so the key places really, Hampton Court Palace, which was home of Henry VIII, was the kind of biggest and best in my eyes.
It's the fanciest.
And they were the happiest years of my career. I just had an awesome time there. So Hampton Court Palace, and of course that straight away, that's full of fantastic history and amazing stories. I worked at the Natural History Museum in London.
I love, as you can see behind me.
Oh my God, how did I not stop?
I'm on the top of the stairs, see?
You are. It's really funny. I'm writing the next book in the series, and I've just been writing a scene that's set exactly where you're sat. I'm so used to seeing you with the Trinity College Dublin Library. Yeah. Might have blurred it out.
I changed it up today. Yeah.
You did. I remember the time standing at the top of that staircase screaming at school children. Those were happy days. I was also at the Ashmolean Museum which is part of Oxford University. And then theatres up and down the country, so I did all those kind of stuff. So they're just inherently full of fascinating people, incredible stories, amazing places that you could hide a body, all those kind of things come about. And Hampton Court specifically, and also the houses that I visit, because I was raised visiting National Trust properties all over the country. I realised that every time I kind of got homesick about England, one of the things I missed was my time at Hampton Court and the amazing people I worked with. And I started to think that is in itself a little community. We used to call ourselves a dysfunctional family, but we were a family. And that's one of the things that's key with Cozy Mysteries, is that sense of community in this little world.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there was the community straight away for me, the beautiful setting, and a place where I knew how it runs. So all the stuff in my books, things could happen or did happen, or they were based on events that we ran. So they're all kind of accurate in that respect as well. And I was so happy working there that one of the things I've said is that the Charlton House Mysteries are actually a bit of a love letter to my time at Hampton Court, because it was just so special. And there were often, a tragic act, which is this month's book.
Yes.
That's the one where the Shakespeare company comes to Hampton Court. And I've worked on Shakespeare productions and worked in the theatre, but it was a particular event at Hampton Court when a group came to perform. It wasn't the Shakespeare. And by the end of the project, there was somebody that I did want to bury underneath the flagstones. So when I started this series, I knew I was going to write that book, and I knew who was dying. So that was done.
Well, that's kind of how my first came about, because of my first cozy. I knew who would die because I'd met the person at an author event, and it was I just wanted to wring her neck most of the time. And so she ended up getting murdered, and that was fun and rather cathartic. So
The worst thing, though, could be when you start a book knowing who you want to kill for very particular reasons, and partway through the book you realise they didn't do it. Because They're innocent. I'm not happy about this, but I have no choice.
Oh, yes. I've done that. I've gotten to the end, written the end with the killer and gone, oh, that doesn't work. I want it to work. I want it to work so much, and it doesn't.
Oh, I'm going to have to let them live. Oh, damn.
Oh geez. So we covered your book there with and this kind of the series that takes place at the lovely Charlton House, which now we all know is Hampton Court.
Well, kind of. I'll just add to that. But so I don't get in complete trouble.
Oh yeah.
It's Hampton Court, are inspired by Hampton Court.
Legal.
Also, there's the grounds are kind of based on Chatsworth House, which is up the road from where I was raised. And then everywhere I go, so there's a gallery in there that's based on, see the Scone Palace up in Scotland. I should know.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All that kind of stuff. So I pull lots of places in. So yeah, and a lot of the events are based on stuff that happened at Hampton Court. But I really enjoy somewhere, even here in the States, and kind of go, oh, that room suddenly appears at the end of the corridor at Charlton House. So it's my world.
Yeah, I've done that. Of course, I've also just pretty much taken an entire museum wholesale as is and just done it and said, well, if they sue me, they sue me.
I did with the Natural History Museum, and I did talk to my editor that I wasn't going to get sued, and she said, no, you're fine. And of course, we've got the little get out clause at the start of our books, but yeah. There's a few
fiction. It's fiction. Nothing's real.
No. There's a number of bars and restaurants appearing in the next one that are real as well, but I'm all right. Yeah.
I tend to do that blend a lot of real places in with fictional places, or move places that I know in Portland out to the coast because, why not? It's fiction. It's fiction.
If somebody reads all my books and then gets out a map of Derbyshire, and it is set in Derbyshire where I'm from, and they started looking at the map, they'd be like, were you drunk when you drew this up? It's like, that's intentional. And
yeah,
I probably was drunk, but it was also
yes, I was also, speaking of drunk. That brings me into my next question. So we obviously and clearly share a love of coffee and cocktails. And I saw your little video with your little special cocktail. So I want to know more about your cocktails and your coffee and your books and how all that comes together, because I love me a good cocktail.
Oh, yes, you do. I'm just saying that home now. And look out whichever city we meet up in, because
oh Lord.
There's a trail of chaos behind every cocktail bar in town. I'm sure of it.
I have no doubt.
No doubt. We'll make our own. Funnily enough, one of the ways, and we probably shouldn't mention it in this interview, but I will. But the film of the last year.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ways that my wife and I got through it was Friday night cocktails, because we no longer knew what day of the week it was. So the way of identifying that was Friday night cocktails. And I'd always loved them anyway.
Yeah.
But I was trying every Friday, I wanted to try a different cocktail. And I approach it I used to do a lot of baking, and I don't know, because I'm the one that would eat it, and that's not good.
Same.
Yeah. Great for my teams at Hampton Court, and I'd come in with all these cakes and they loved it, but now it's just me and my wife. So I love trying the different recipes and finding out the stories behind the cocktails, and they're fascinating, some of the stuff that you learn and the way they reflect the social times and events, and it's just incredible. So I love all that stuff. And when I was getting ready to launch the book, I thought, okay, I've got to do something different. And if nobody except me appreciates it, I don't care. Let's have a cocktail. And at the time, and I don't want this to sound like advertising, I had recently come across a distillery called Corgi Distilleries.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Well, now, okay. Gets out the Google.
It's owned by an Anglophile, and so everything is themed, and the Corgi dogs.
Okay. Corgi Distillery. Okay. I'm pulling that up so that I can look at it later. Oh, of course, and it's in Jersey City. Yes. Uh-huh.
So I contacted them and said, would you be interested? Could I work with somebody to design a cocktail for the book? And they went, yeah, love the idea. So I went over, I booked into a hotel for the night because I've got to taste them all.
And you can't drive after, right?
No, so we're going to behave ourselves. And we sat there at the bar with the mixologist, and she was fantastic. And she was trying different things. And I talked about the book and explained that the lead character, Sophie, is a gin and coffee addict, but the book is set in the summer. And we tried lots of different things and eventually came up with the Death by Dark Roast, which is in some respects a little bit like a martini espresso, but it's much lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, having that cocktail where there is a story behind it, which is the story of my book.
Right.
The story to be me and what I've written, but it's a cocktail with a great story.
I love it.
It is, I genuinely, like I said in the video that I made, I genuinely love it. And now I'm just trying to refine it. So I'm trying it with different coffee liqueurs and different espresso from different coffee beans. So it becomes a little bit obsessive, but I'm very happy whilst obsessing over it.
I totally get it. I totally, because we had a similar, well, our Friday night cocktails might have extended to Monday, Wednesday, Friday night. But at this point, we've definitely perfected the aviation because that's our favorite. So yeah. So that, oh, it's so much fun. We enjoy it. And so that kind of brings us into what other interesting, bizarre, unusual things have you had to research for your books?
Oh, well, interesting stuff that I got stuck into. The third book in the series, Sleep Like the Dead, features Charles Dickens. I kill him.
As one does.
But I love his work. His work is fantastic. And so I like to make sure things are as accurate as possible, and like many authors and yourself included, I'm sure I vanished down black holes of research and just keep going. But I like to get just that little, I mean, you can do days and days of research and it becomes a single word or a single sentence, and that's all it turns into. But I want the little touches to be right. Yeah. So I was doing a lot of work reading around Charles Dickens, and I loved the things like his favorite flower was a red geranium, and he'd always have one in the buttonhole of his jacket. And he would, when he was touring, he had a wooden lectern made with red velvet on it, so it looked nice on the stage. And there was an extra little wooden box built into it, so he could lean on it without looking slouched, and he could sort of lean for hours and hours and read his work.
That is clever.
Which was really clever. Yeah. But the thing with Dickens was, you know, he's known as an amazing author, and he did masses for society and charity work, and particularly trying to get prostitutes off the street and give them education and get them set up so that they could move off the street, assuming that was what they wanted. But he was a horrible husband. He was just awful. Yeah. So by the time I finished this research, I was so conflicted, because on the one hand, he's a really great man, and on the other, he wasn't good. He was really awful to his wife. So I didn't know that about the character of him, which was really, really interesting. And then for the fourth book, A Deadly Ride, which has the cycling theme, and both of those books actually are prime examples of books that are based on actual events that we did at Hampton Court Palace. And we hosted the cycling road race events for the London 2012 Olympics. And so I was involved in all of that, and we wanted to keep the palace open for the public. And we threw a big cycling themed extravaganza one evening, which I've replicated in the book, which was great fun. Yeah. But there is a soldier from the Boer War features in it very briefly, because I have a lot of live interpreters in my books, the people that kind of play the characters from history. And I worked with those people for many years. So this guy who fought on the front lines of the Boer War makes an appearance, but he was actually part of a bicycling infantry, and they had cyclists on the front line. And a lot of people didn't realize this.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
I mean, they were easier to care for than horses. You didn't have to feed them. Right?
Yeah.
And they were quick and easy to maintain, and you could get to the front line and deliver messages and come back and forth. So I was doing a lot of reading around the cycling regiments of that time, and in touch with the National Cycling Museum, which is in Wales. And I realized that as I was emailing this guy about, okay, which make of bike and what would this be like, that I'd actually met him because he'd been at Hampton Court for the event. They brought some of the bikes. So I was like, oh, I know who you are. Yeah,
That's
met.
cool. Yeah.
And I think, I got to actually, as part of that event, which turned out to be useful, was I got to sit upon a penny farthing. I didn't get to ride it.
I'd probably break my neck.
If I was going to, I would now wear my full motorcycle gear now that I know how high I got there. But it did mean I also kind of could describe them quite well, because that features in A Deadly Ride as well. So yeah, that stuff around the Boer War. I've researched in detail beer mugs from 150 years ago and the kind of markings that they would have had on the bottom of them. And
it's important to know.
And key for certain things. So that was good fun. And at the moment, I am starting to do some research, which I'm gonna have to figure out how to make it cozy, but it's grave robbers, body snatchers. So
that could totally be cozy. I mean, they have to stop for tea, right?
Absolutely.
There's always time for coffee.
Scones and tea at the side of the grave. I'll have to work on that a bit, but for some strange reason, with my twisted brain, I'm fascinated by resurrectionists.
So much. In fact, I just watched a documentary on it's a new show on Investigation Discovery called Murderous History, and they did an episode on the resurrectionists in 1828 Edinburgh, who were actually unresurrecting living people, shall we say.
By any chance?
That is exactly, yes. It was which of course I've actually seen like other things about them, but it was fascinating. I find it so fascinating. I might be a little macabre, I don't know. But that brings us into, what are you working on now?
Well, I am just finishing off the 7th book in the Charlton House Mysteries, A Capital Crime, which is, I moved them to London, hence the stuff on the Natural History Museum. So that's been a lot of fun, and I've been researching botanical explorers from the 18th and 19th century, that kind of stuff. So I'm about 10 days away from finishing that. So it's kind of that stressful time now whilst I try and figure it out. So I'm beavering away on that, and that's going to be out in August, if all goes to plan, which is good. And then immediately, so of course my brain, it's the shiny new object that's almost close. So I'm already kind of going, can I get this done? And I want to start the new project. The new project is a bit different, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a book of short stories and a couple of short novellas using some of the characters from Charlton House, but also some of the minor characters that you don't get to see much of, but developing a story around them. And I'm doing that partly because I want to work on my skills as a writer, and short story writing is so different. I want to keep developing my own skills. I don't just want to be trying to get books out. I want to make sure that I'm growing as a writer. Yeah. And the other thing about that project, which I'm really excited about, is they're all going to be written on a manual typewriter. Ooh. I'm going back. I'm going analog.
Ooh, you're going old school, real old school. Oh my goodness.
I've become addicted to typewriters now. I got a gorgeous one for Christmas, and I am going to end up with a collection, I'm sure. So when I should be finishing off the book, every now and again I'm popping onto eBay and popping on and sort of trying to find the other books.
Trying to find more typewriters.
So that's, I'm excited about that. It's going to be quite different, and that will be out again, all being well, before Christmas. And then next year, I'm going to be launching a new series. I'm going to keep doing Charlton House Mysteries. That's still got a number of books to go. The number of, when I first started it, I wrote down a list of themes that would work. So, cycle, sleepover, that kind of top level thing. And I had about 25 just off the top of my head because of the events I'd done over the course of my career. I doubt there'll be 25 books, but I've got...
You never know.
You never know. Yeah. If people keep buying them, then I'll keep writing them. But I do need another series to start. Switch between. So yeah, the short stories, and because of what I plan on doing with some of the characters, and I'm also going to get time to focus on Joyce, who's kind of one of the sidekicks in my series. And it turns out that, as well as one of my favorite characters, she's one of the favorites for the readers. It's one of the bits of feedback I got, that Pumpkin the cat and Joyce are two of the favorites. So I'm going to get to spend a bit more time with Joyce, which is a joy. Any scene with Joyce in it, I love writing.
Excellent, so excellent. But okay, so final question. What books are you enjoying now as a reader, and is there anything you recommend?
Oh, if you put all my to be read books in a pile by the house, they'd go above the roof. And along with so all of that, really. Oh my God, there's so many. Some of my reading does head off towards the police procedural type stuff as well. So I read, a lot of my reading is nonfiction, but the Gigi Pandian, who writes, I think I've got that right, the J.A. Jones mysteries, I hope I've pronounced her name right. I love the J.A. Jones mysteries. I think they're fantastic. And I had a major fangirl moment when she emailed me to tell me that she liked my books. And I go, kidding me. That's very cool. I'm very proud of that moment. There's a series of books that don't officially have a series title, I don't think, but I call them Murder at the Museum, and they're by a guy called Jim Eldridge, and they're set in about 100 years ago, I think it is, and each one is set at a different museum in or around London. So there was Murder at the Natural History Museum, Murder at the British Museum, Murder at the Ashmolean, and I started reading them because they were set in places I knew or had worked. And they're fantastic. And one of the lead characters is a woman who, you know, she can't vote at that point, and she is an archaeologist, and she's just very, very cool. So Jim Eldridge writes those.
Okay, I'll have to Google that one too, because I don't think I haven't read any of those. You give me all the googly things, and I love to Google.
There you go. Well, there's one for you there. And then I love stuff. I mean, Anne Cleeves, who wrote the Vera series. I'm really enjoying her books.
I love Vera.
Series, yeah, the latest one, the Detective Matthew Venn series. I read the first one practically in a sitting. I'm now waiting desperately for the next one to come out. Louise Penny, I really, really enjoy. One I read recently that I didn't think I'd like and ended up, I couldn't put it down, was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. A lot of publicity. And it was a Christmas gift off a friend of mine who knows my taste. And I read the first few chapters and was like, why have you sent me this? I don't get it. And I put it aside for a few months, and then I picked it up again and got further in, and then I couldn't put it down. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I can't remember the author's name, but that's well worth it.
Yeah, no, I've seen that around, and I was like, that the title always catches my attention, but it's not the typical thing necessarily I would read. And so I was kind of like, well, I might have to look into it a little closer then.
Yeah, because it's generally the kind of period it talks about in Hollywood glamour, that whole kind of thing, and the movie system is not my cup of tea. But I ended up being so intrigued that I just, plowed through it after that.
Cool. I'll have to check it out. Well, Kate, thank you so much for sitting down with me and yammering about cocktails, cozy mysteries, and coffee.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll do face to face over a cocktail at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have a cozy mystery confab. Ooh, wouldn't that be fun? Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you later. Bye.